This is the sixth major incident we've had in the last few weeks. Luckily or happily, everybody was deplaned, managed to get out of the plane, some by a rear slide, and others over the wing. So they're all off. I understand 12 were taken to hospital, possible smoke inhalation, but minor injuries. So that's the position there. And I've managed to talk to somebody locally, and they've updated me on certain aspects of it. The interesting thing is there was no evidence of fire in the air. It only started, they knew there was a problem going to happen. There was severe vibration coming from one of the engines, and so it was diverted into Denver. It landed in Denver, and they parked the aircraft right in the middle of the apron, well away from the gates and well away from other buildings and aircraft furniture. At that point, smoke appeared, bellowed out from underneath the engine, then suddenly it burst into flames. Obviously, the emergency procedure goes in, but it's interesting. I would have expected to see more fire engines and more emergency vehicles around, but clearly they weren't expecting the fire as such. So that was quickly changed, and suddenly they had to evacuate. They got everybody out inside 90 seconds, which is the industry standard. Some went over the wing. Now, it's quite interesting. They went over the wing door, and that's an optional fitment. If you remember last year, one of those panels flew out the side of an aircraft because it didn't actually have that wing door. It had a dummy plate in its place. So that was the very door. Had it been in the other aircraft, that would have been the door they'd come out over the wing. Anyway, they got out onto the wing. They're all standing on the wing. Crazily, there are some people with luggage. We always tell people, get out of the aircraft quickly, leave the luggage. You can always replace that. You can't replace yourself. So somebody delayed somebody else trying to get off the plane, but I'm afraid that's human nature. It happens. But we've got all the passengers off, 12 taken to hospital. That's good. The fire is contained around an engine area. There's obviously been a fuel leak, and this we'll find out because we've got all the crew who can tell us what happened there. And of course, then we hunt for the black boxes. They should be in pretty good condition, so that can tell us what was going on there. Possibly a fan. There might have been a bird strike. We don't know. Something might have been ingested. A fan blade might have shattered and gone in and shattered a fuel line. We're not sure, but that is possible because it was a delayed reaction for the fire, and well, smoke first, then fire. And as I say, no smoke without fire. So obviously that's what happened. Now, this plane was diverted, so they knew it was all going to happen, and Denver were ready for it. They weren't ready for the fire, I don't think. It's probably on standby, but as I say, there weren't. It wasn't in evidence on the videos I've seen. So they divert. They don't dump fuel before they go in, so they weren't really aware there was going to be that problem. Normally they would circle and they'd all go over some water somewhere and try and get rid of excess fuel in case of fire. But anyway, it got down safely, landed, and then the drama happened, if you like. Inside the cabin itself, of course, it's sealed until you open the doors or open the hatches or whatever. So that would have been quite clear at the time. But as soon as they open the doors, of course, to escape, then you're going to let the smoke in, and it will be drawn in like a vacuum. It goes along the cabin. So we've seen people exiting out of the rear by slide, and then over the wing. They're walking. They put some steps up, and they managed to get down the steps there. They couldn't deploy all the slides, obviously. The side where the fire was happening, that's a no-go area, so they use whatever's available on this side. But The good thing is that everybody's out, everybody's safe. There's some minor injuries, and we think there's some smoke inhalation work to be done on 12 of the passengers. I wouldn't say safety safety is slacking, but there have been problems both within Boeing and within certain airlines in the States. The FAA has also been at fault because that's been pretty lax at times, but they say they're tightening up there. And they do have a lot of, well, the FAA has a lot of work on. They also have inspectors that go into the hangars and into workshops and check that the work is being done. There's a kind of a tick box system where they go through and check. It's a surprise visit, if you like, it's an unannounced visit, they call it. And so they do check that. But occasionally things go wrong, and occasionally there are mistakes. It shouldn't happen, but that is the way of the world. All I will say, and I've said this many times, is that there are so many aircraft in the sky, it is still safer than going on a bus or going in a taxi. So that is what you have to remember. If you look at one of the flight tracking mechanisms, you will see, if you see the picture there, you will see it's like ants all over the globe, the number of aircraft flying at any one moment. So I think you have to look at that and say, well, they're not falling out of the sky, thankfully. But when these things do happen, because of the speed of reporting these days, we tend to go into minute detail about it, or rather than say there's been an incident, everybody got off safely, and that's it. There's an airline in the UK that flies this type of aircraft, and it's called Ryanair. They have a huge fleet, and they're still sticking with Boeing, and they're ordering. They can't get enough. They have got the back orders for aircraft. They're going to be short of aircraft this summer because they cannot get enough Boeing aircraft. So if you talk to Ryanair, they will tell you exactly what I'm saying. It is a very safe aircraft. Occasionally things do happen, but they are on top of it. And here you see today the crew had the warning. There are several warnings will be going off, buzzers, everything, screens flashing, the whole lot, saying there's a problem. There is also, of course, an engine fire damping system. So had the crew been aware there was a fire, they could have set that in play, and that might have taken care of it. But there was no evidence of fire at the time. So all these backup systems are there. So it's not to worry people, but to say, look, we're trying to make this as safe as possible. In fact, we're being overcautious because we double and treble up on the systems, so that if one thing doesn't happen, then something else happens. But we're alerted either on the ground or in the air, and we know exactly what's happening, and we can prepare for it, or we can take avoiding action. It's when somebody bends the rules, for example, on the Black Hawk situation where they were trying out night goggles, that isn't supposed to happen. So there you are. Hopefully they will learn the lessons from that one.